We may not see the next generation of consoles for another 3 or 4 years, or we could start seeing them next year. It's kind of hard to tell. There's a lot of stories out there. Uh, I wouldn't believe anything until we see the PlayStations and the Nintendos and the Xboxes actually say stuff. But I think it's worth talking about. And I think it's worth talking about how this may impact games that are being developed right now and decisions they make moving forward. So here today, I am recording this on the 16th of February. A flurry of articles popped up today, and I think a little bit over the weekend, talking about how Sony may not release the PlayStation 6 until 2028, 2029. I've even seen some speculation as late as 2030. We've also seen reports of Nintendo having to raise the price of the Switch 2 and or just not making Switch 2s for a while. And then the Xbox, the most recent rumors have been that it's going to release its new console in 2027, but if it has to be $2,000 because of current hardware prices and stuff, we may also see these rumors skip over to them as well. There's also always the possibility that maybe they just decide not to do it. I don't think that's true. We'll have to wait and see. And then even with Valve and their Steam machine, more than ever, I think that it's less and less likely we ever see the iteration of that was teased at the end or late in 2025, simply because when they were developing that, they couldn't have accounted for what was going to happen. And what has happened, if you haven't paid attention or don't care to, is that basically hardware prices are insanely expensive right now. And it's mostly because of AI developments. So the thing with artificial intelligence, and especially what we are assuming, what we are talking about when we say AI right now, are these large language models and things like Grok and OpenAI and all these things. And the reason they are so impactful is because to exist, they need an insane amount of power and hardware, PC hardware. And the PC hardware they're using are insanely expensive and powerful graphics processors that actually, do the compute stuff for the AI, as well as RAM, as well as CPUs and various other bits of hardware. It's the same hardware that we are often seeing in our gaming consoles and our phones and TVs and even cars and trucks and so on. And so what's happened is that these companies that make all this hardware look around, and what they want are the biggest guaranteed orders possible. So in the past, a guaranteed order from a PlayStation, from an Xbox, from a Nintendo was a very lucrative sale for these companies that make the chips and graphics processors and things like that. But now what's going on is that there's this growing bubble of AI companies. You have literally the Googles, Amazon, all the biggest companies in the world, Nvidia being the biggest one almost, dumping billions and billions of dollars into buying this hardware for reasons I think we'll eventually maybe question. But for now, it's happening whether it's going to come to something or not. And they're just sucking up all the capacity to make those things, leaving smaller customers like PlayStation, Nintendo, and if you're a gamer, gaming companies kind of in the dust. And consumer products are a whole different thing. If you're a PC gamer, makes your own stuff, upgrades your own PC, does all that, we're all being left in the dirt because frankly, we don't matter. Our money is useless to these companies when the alternative is to satisfy the orders of these gigantic companies. And so what we're seeing are Xbox and PlayStation very likely being real fast and loose when they release new hardware. We have Nintendo likely having to eventually charge more for their Switch 2 because they only made so many of them before these prices jumped up, right? Not to mention we've had issues, at least in the past, with some current governmental situations with tariffs and things like that have caused issues on top of these demand issues. And what it all leads to is this situation where consumers and game developers are all kind of waiting with bated breath, right, to find out what these, the big platforms are going to do. Because, PlayStation and Nintendo, are kind of dominating the market in their kind of two lanes. We have Xbox, who's still a player, even if hardware isn't their focus, and they're becoming more of a software platform at this point. And then you have, just general PC customers, including like the Valve Steam machine, but even people who make their own PCs or pre-built companies who make computers for people to buy that are already assembled and working. And what that's doing to the games industry is really interesting, because this comes at the same time that the games industry is oversaturated, has so many games coming out every single month, every single week, that, the days of no games coming out for multiple months over the winter time, say, are gone. There used to be a dead period in gaming, and the beginning of each year where not really much came out. There's rarely ever news. Now you've got Game of the Year contenders coming out in the first 3 months of the year. In 2025, Clair Obscur came out, I believe, in March. That was unheard of back in the day. But there's so many games coming out. There's so many companies making games, from indies to double A's to triple A's to the big platforms in their first parties, that you have to release your games when there's space. And it's getting to the point where you can't even do that. We're getting to a point where very likely in November, when Grand Theft Auto 6 is supposedly coming out, there's probably going to be other big games that come out that month, where in previous years or generations that wouldn't have happened, because there was room to spread, and now there just isn't. So you take all those factors and you put them all together, and you have the situation where gaming hardware is probably kind of losing a little bit of its demand, because everything's so expensive and no one has any money and everyone's in debt. And, there's this weird situation where I think we're heading towards a situation where, gaming probably takes a dip. We probably see a lot fewer games come out in the next 4 or 5 years. We probably see a lot more safe games come out, remakes, remasters, sequels, things like that. We probably see, and this whole thing started off with talking about how, 5 years ago, the plan for PlayStation and Xbox and so on was probably to release new hardware like this year or next year. And I don't think that's going to happen. And I think that's okay, right? I think that there's still plenty to get from the Series X, from the PlayStation 5, from, PlayStation is in a good position because they released a mid-gen refresh with the PS5 Pro. Xbox, the Series X, is still a very capable machine. Now, I do, as much as I've defended the Series S, we might be starting to get to a situation where they might need to be a little more willing to allow the Series S to take a back seat to a point, and maybe push the people who have those towards like cloud streaming and stuff, if there's games that just can't run on it anymore or cause too much of a burden to do that. But I don't know what they're going to do. I think that dependence on that next generation of consoles happening is probably going to hurt Xbox the worst, because they don't seem to really be making Series X's and Series S's right now. They seem to be kind of short in supply out in the world. And I assume that was a purposeful drawdown while they were probably preparing this next gen of consoles. And if that's going to get pushed back 2 or 3 years, are we going to see them ramp back up production of the current consoles, even though it's going to be way more expensive to do that now? And they already are charging $150 more for a Series X than they were when they launched it 5 years ago. It's a precarious situation. It's a really weird one. And it does kind of lend some credence to the concerns or ideas people have had. Like, man, are they like even going to stay in the space? Like why would they in a way? Like, why would they make more consoles in the future if it's going to be years off? Why wouldn't they have partners make them, like the Asus handheld? Why not? Why can't they make a desktop as well, or a set top box that would work as a console and have a console UI, but basically is a PC and could even be dual booted or something like that? I don't know. The final part I wanted to kind of just get some thoughts out there on is how, like I said before, games that are like beginning development right now, what are they going to do? For example, 2 games that I follow pretty closely are The Division 3 from Ubisoft Massive, which has likely started development now. It's probably due to come out in 2 or 3 years. Well, what specs are they targeting, right? They probably don't have, I can't imagine they would have, development consoles yet for the next gen, especially from PlayStation, because I doubt they're even manufacturing those things yet. It wouldn't surprise me if Xbox has dev kits, at least very early ones that they could put out, but maybe not. I don't know. And then, so what are these companies going to do? Like, is Ubisoft Massive going to target their next, Division 3 as a next gen game, and they're going to assume everyone's going to have access to this significantly faster hardware, or are they going to target a cross gen game, which is what they're probably going to have to do at this point. They're probably going to have to target these games to work at least decently on the current gen consoles, and then to be able to take advantage of the next gen. Another one is Mass Effect. Mass Effect 5, in development by BioWare, which is likely, if it hasn't already started, is going to start full production this year. What are they targeting? So you're looking at 3-4 years from now when this game is actually ready to ship. That's exactly in the middle of this window where we think that the next gen consoles may not come out until then. So do they do the same thing? They're in an even more interesting position because they have Unreal Engine 5 on this console, which is getting lots of updates and becoming more efficient, and people are learning how to use it and make it work better for the current gen consoles. Are they going to take advantage of that, or are they going to try to assume that these consoles are going to have, this big new power bump with the next gen? I think it's pretty likely that they should probably try to target the current gen consoles and then allow the next gen consoles to be a big boost in fidelity and things like that, especially when they have access to all of these resolution upscalers and things like that, and these technologies that can scale all the way down to like a Series S or a Switch 2, all the way up to a high-end PC or something like what we might see in the next gen of consoles. I don't know. I think it's an interesting question. It's why I wanted to jump on here and basically do like a mini blog. I'm sorry I don't have a bunch of fancy graphics or anything like that, but I hope this was somewhat entertaining. Let me know what you think down in the comments, or just say hi. The comments help more people see the videos. Hit the like button for the same reason, so more people are exposed to the video. Consider becoming a YouTube member if you want to support what I'm doing here and everything else I do. At least consider subscribing to the channel so you get notifications for all of my videos. You can check out everything else I'm doing and other ways to support at the links in the description. That's all I've got for this one. So until next time.